One sore point year after year, Ashok, is the lack of disinvestment, lack of progress and success in disinvestments. Because, it seems difficult to understand why in a market which is quite stable, where companies are raising billions of dollars of capital, the government cannot get even $10 billion done in a year, or sometimes much less than that. I mean, the government did $4 billion, maybe not even that last year. What is the problem according to you, and how can this be resolved?
I have to tell you, Udyan, that if there was one place in the budget where I felt disappointed on the macro side, I think the tax numbers are bang on, the GDP number, the borrowing number, everything is so. I mean, the maths is so correct, and it is so real. The only number which was a disappointing number was really the divestment number for me. Because remember, out of 61,000, they have said 10,000 crores is repayment of loans, so it's 51,000. And out of 51,000, IDBI alone hopefully gives you a multi-billion-dollar payback. So what are you left with as a target? RDBI is work in progress. There's no debate in my mind that at some point of time during the current year, there will be a transaction in IDBI. So what are you left by way of a target? Very, very small sum. And that's a disappointment, because at a time when government is really trying to rein in fiscal discipline and demonstrate that less governance is better, less government involvement, is better governance. I think the only thing I can say is that government is probably understating it, as they did with the tax collection numbers last year, on the basis that understatement and over delivery is a significantly better strategy. And I hope that's the case here too.
It probably is not, Ashok, because if you look at this year's example, they set a target of that too was reduced during the year of 60,000 crores plus, and they ended up doing only 31,000 crores, of which again, like you said with IDBI, LIC IPO was more than 20,000 crores. So hardly anything happened during the year. They couldn't even make half of their target last year. Same was the case the year before last. So it's not probably a question of under-promising and over-delivering, because the delivery is just not there. I mean, you run such a large investment banking house. You must be advising the government on many transactions and mandates. Is there something that we are missing? Because it cannot be so difficult to sell some of these assets.
No, it's not. I mean, government embarked upon a new program last year, as you know, when they transferred a lot of the transmission assets and NHAI assets into an InvIT. And there was a huge demand, and there continues to be a huge demand. I mean, I would argue that there are many other places, rolling stock for the railways, transmission business, where if government was to announce creation of InvITs, there is enough and more capital waiting to be invested with the government in those projects. And that does allow the government to recycle its capital and build new projects. So I don't think that there is any dearth of opportunities should the government wish to implement a stronger disinvestment program. Why is it not happening? Very, very, very unclear to me, honestly, because the opportunity is out there for sure.
You made the point about the expectation being that there will be less government and more corporate ownership of these assets. The same thing was pointed out yesterday by many industrialists who said, or some mild critics of the budget who said, the government is doing the heavy lifting year after year with capex as well. And we thought that the government would recede from the picture and the corporates would be doing the heavy lifting. Is that a bit of a surprise that, contrary to the stated position many years ago, that the government would recede and cede the business space to India Inc., the opposite seems to be happening now?
So let's break it into two parts: general capex and infrastructure. I mean, let's face it, government has to do heavyweight lifting on the infra projects. We see this around the world, where large infrastructure projects are being implemented, and India does need significant amount of that. That the private sector is a little slow and eventually tends to catch up. If you look at perhaps the last 12, 18, 24 months, you will see that government has been able to access a lot of private capital, even if it, as I said, is through this InvIT and the REIT program. That REIT is more, of course, for the private sector, but the InvIT program that the government has implemented for both the NHAI and the transmission projects. So on infra, I think government has little choice but to continue leading from the front. Also remember, it does have a multiplier impact on employment, which has been one of the other reasons we've been kind of watching and seeing how the government expense and allocation to infrastructure works. On the private sector capex, the other piece, we are all a little disappointed that private sector has been a little slow, but you can attribute it to two reasons. To begin with, corporate balance sheets were rather stretched, and the banking sector balance sheets were even more stretched. So then the question was, where is the capital and where is the debt for corporate India to kind of really take that big initiative? Over the last 3 years, that's been one of the most remarkable changes in India, that corporate balance sheets have become so much more healthier, promoter pledges have pretty much gone away, and banking balance sheets have become so much more credible to be able to lend now. So I think the atmosphere is now set for larger doses of private capital to be forthcoming and more capex to be incurred. And then, of course, we had 2-year COVID cycle when nobody could think about anything but protecting what they had. So I would argue and say that government had no choice but probably continue to lead through this period when corporates were stretched, where banks were stretched, where COVID was probably the big challenge in front of everybody else. And hopefully the benefit of having led from the front will be seen now as more and more corporates promise to incur larger capex.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.